Welcome back! This is video number 4 in a series where we talk through our complete process for creating Ultimate Frisbee highlight videos. Check out the description for links to all the other videos. In this video, we'll be talking about all of the things that you need to do before you capture the opening pull. The first thing that you need to do before you show up at the fields with the camera is ask permission to show up at the fields with the camera. This means contacting the person or people in charge of the event in advance and asking permission to film. The people being filmed, the Ultimate players, should also be notified that they're going to be filmed and will need to consent to being filmed. Generally, this can be done through the channels that the organisers use to communicate with the players. For example, posted on social media or included in an event email. This has the added bonus of building anticipation and letting people know where they can watch your video once it's done. There's also some key bits of information that are useful to know beforehand. You need to know the schedule beforehand because you need to know when to show up, and if you're filming an event with more than one field, it's also useful to have a field map. If the event is organised through Ultimate Central, generally all of the information you need will be there. Depending on how many camera batteries you have, you may also want to find out whether you'll have access to somewhere that you can charge your batteries so that you can plan accordingly. Once you've got all that information, you can start to plan things out a little. If you're only filming one game, or if you're filming an event with only one field, there's not a lot to plan. But if you're filming a larger event with multiple fields and games being played simultaneously, it's worth planning out where you should be so that you can capture as much Ultimate as you can. There's a few things to consider when making that plan. Firstly, you don't just have to film one field at a time. Particularly if the fields are close together, you can film more than one field at once. Ultimate tends to be a pretty disjointed game, which I don't tend to notice while I'm playing Ultimate, but when I started filming Ultimate I realized that there's lots of downtime between points and when calls get made. It's not uncommon for me to be filming two fields at once. I'll film one field, and then when the play stops, I'll walk to the next field, and I'll start filming there. And then when play stops there, I'll move back to the first field. If the fields are arranged in a grid, you could even stand on the corner and film 4 fields at once. So if you have a map of the fields, plan out the places you could set up to get the most bang for your buck. Secondly, you'll want to film as much footage of as many teams as you can while capturing as many highlights as you can. We'll talk more about this when we get to the editing episode, but it's important that your highlight videos are equitable by featuring clips from all of the different teams at a tournament. No one wants to watch a highlight video from an event that they played in and not see their team anywhere. To make sure that we can do that while editing, we need to make sure that we have footage from all of the teams at the event. One way to do this is to look at the schedule and plan out where you'll be for each round to make sure that you film every team. If it's a really big tournament, that might not be possible, so all you can do is try your best. One simpler way to do things which works well for smaller tournaments is to spend some time filming each field each round. For example, if I'm filming a smaller tournament with 4 fields, I might spend the first half of each round filming fields 1 and 2, and then spend the second half of each round filming fields 3 and 4. That way, when it comes to editing, I've got some footage from every single game. A few other things to keep in mind when planning your day. Firstly, not all games will last for the whole time slot. Ultimate is a bit unique in that games are played for 90 minutes or to 15 points, whichever comes first. So some games will run for the full duration, and some games will finish early. Particularly if you have a stronger team playing a weaker team, there's a good chance that the game could finish early. I try and pick the games that I think might finish early and make sure that I film those first, because it sucks showing up to field to catch the last half hour of a game only to find that there's only 5 minutes of gameplay left because one team is getting rolled. Secondly, and I want to stress that this doesn't apply in all cases, but generally the closer games and the more important games tend to have more highlights in them. If a stronger team is playing a weaker team and the score is blowing out, people tend to lay out and do crazy stuff less because there's not much point. Laying out to score a point when you're 13-5 down seems less enticing than laying out if it's universe point. And if there's more at stake for a game, people tend to try harder and make bigger plays, which is generally why we see more highlights from playoff games and finals than we do in pool play. This also means that generally we see more and bigger highlights toward the end of a tournament because the games get more important and teams are playing more evenly matched opposition. Once we have asked permission to film and we've made a plan for where we're going to be for each game, on the night before we start filming we need to pack everything. But before we can shove everything in a bag, there's a few things that we need to do. Firstly, and this is really obvious but it's super important so I'm going to say it anyway, we need to charge up all our camera batteries. There is nothing worse than getting to the fields and starting to film only to find that your camera battery goes flat after 2 minutes. Ask me how I know. If you're taking a laptop to the fields because you don't have enough SD card space to film for the whole day, make sure that's charged too. Speaking of SD cards, I recommend that you clear all of your SD cards to make sure that you can film as much as possible. This isn't strictly necessary. If you've got a big SD card and you're not planning on filming a lot, you probably don't need to. But for bigger, longer tournaments, you'll probably need to take everything off those SD cards so that you have blank cards and as much free storage space as you can get so that you can film as much as you can. This also makes managing the footage a bit easier because you can copy everything from each card into your project folder rather than having to go through and find out where your cat photos end and when your ultimate footage begins. This last one is also not strictly necessary, but it's something that I like to do just to give me some peace of mind. I like to go through my camera and make sure that all of the settings are set correctly, particularly the settings that I won't be adjusting throughout the day, things like resolution, frame rate, etc. If you need a refresher on what settings to use, there's a link in the description to the previous video in this series. It really sucks to finish filming what feels like a great day, only to find that you had your camera on the wrong settings. Again, ask me how I know. After you've charged up all your batteries, cleared all your cards and checked your camera settings, all that's left to do is to pack everything. There's a link in the description to the second video in this series which details all of the kits that you'll need. Also linked in the description is the supplementary materials of this course, which includes a packing checklist to help make sure that you don't forget anything. If you've ever showed up at the fields to play and forgotten your cleats, you'll know how much it sucks to forget something important. As well as packing all of your camera gear, it's important to pack the things that you need to look after yourself, particularly if you're going to be filming for a long time. Make sure that you've got a water bottle, and I like to take some snacks with me as well. You're going to be spending a lot of time standing up, so make sure you pack some comfortable shoes. If it's going to be sunny, you're going to want a hat, sunglasses and sunscreen, and if it's going to be rainy, you're going to want a raincoat, an umbrella and some shoes that you don't mind getting wet. For some cold winter mornings, I've even taken some gloves with me, and I was glad that I did. And that brings us to the end of this video. We've talked through all of the organizational things that need to be done before showing up to an ultimate game with a camera, and we've talked about what we need to do to make sure that we have a camera that works when we show up to the game. As always, don't forget to check out the link in the description to the additional resources and the addendums to this video. This also marks the halfway point in the course, so congratulations on making it this far. In the next video, we're going to be talking about how to actually film Ultimate Frisbee highlights. See you then!